Once upon a time, there was a small, secluded village hidden deep in the heart of a dark forest. The village was known as Hollow Creek, and it had a reputation for being haunted. Most people who had heard of it would avoid it, especially after dusk, when the air seemed to grow colder and the shadows longer. The villagers lived in small, old cottages with thatched roofs. They were simple folk, humble and kind, but they lived with a constant sense of unease. Strange things happened in the village, things that no one could explain. On the edge of the village stood an ancient church, its stone walls cracked and weathered by time. It had once been a beautiful structure, but now it was dark, its windows shattered, and a thick fog always seemed to linger around it. Some villagers whispered that the church was cursed, and that something terrible had happened there long ago. The village children, in particular, were warned to stay away from the church. Their parents would tell them stories about the Watcher, a ghostly figure who roamed the woods at night, keeping an eye on the village. It was said that if you wandered too far into the forest, the Watcher would find you, and you would never return. But one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the orange sky turned to a deep purple, a curious young boy named Thomas decided to venture out into the forest. Thomas had always been fascinated by the tales of the Watcher and the haunted church, and he was determined to see it for himself. With his heart pounding, he grabbed a lantern and set off into the forest. The trees loomed tall and dark, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The path was barely visible, but Thomas pressed on, ignoring the growing sense of dread that gnawed at him. As he ventured deeper into the forest, the wind began to howl, and the sound of rustling leaves filled the air. Strange whispers seemed to float on the wind, though no one was there. Thomas's footsteps quickened, and soon he found himself standing at the entrance of the old church. The door creaked as it swung open, revealing the dark interior. The air inside was thick with dust, and the once beautiful stained glass windows were now shattered, letting in only dim light. The floorboards groaned beneath his feet as he stepped inside. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him, and the temperature dropped dramatically. Thomas spun around, heart racing. He could feel a presence in the church, something ancient and powerful. A figure began to materialize before him, its face shrouded in darkness. The Watcher, with a voice like the rustling of dead leaves, the Watcher spoke. "You should not have come here, child," it said. Thomas tried to run, but the Watcher reached out and grabbed him, its cold fingers wrapping around his wrist. He struggled, but it was no use. The Watcher's grip was unyielding. Just as Thomas thought all was lost, a flash of light filled the church, and the Watcher recoiled. A figure stepped forward, bathed in light, an old woman, with eyes that glowed like the moon.